Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
The DNA profile was entered into CODIS to be routinely searched against the database. The case agency will be notified when there is a profile match. Well, was there a profile match? No. It was never tested.
Why you always lying?
Well, that is false, Phoenix. It was tested. And how do you know it was tested? Because it was unknown male DNA. The only way they know the gender is because they tested it, okay? And I think you're confusing running something through CODIS and getting a hit with testing, okay? Two different things. And they never received a hit in CODIS because inmate 163214 was not in CODIS. So that's why there was no match in CODIS.
Male E was Brian Koberger's dad. Remember the trash pool and his dirty Q-tip? That's how they got DNA from E. Okay? So they went back and basically said 1.1 was not Brian Koberger.
Why you always lying?
Again, false. They never said that 1.1 was not inmate 163214. They said male E was not the source. So his dad was not the source. They did, however, go on to say, based on the evaluation of the DNA profile obtained from 87.1 male E and that previously obtained from item 1.1 male A, male E cannot be excluded as being the biological father of male A. And that's when they were able to go get the warrant. And then, of course, as we know, the buccal swab from inmate 163214, his DNA from that matched 1.1 on the knife sheath. So no, they didn't exclude him.
But remember what happened to 1.1. Does anybody remember what they did with 1.1? That was the one where there was no chain of custody. The ISP person got the leather sheath that was handed to them, and it was not taped. All right? It was not taped. It wasn't sealed, nothing. It wasn't even, it was logged in as 1.1, but it was changed to 22, item 22. And
why you always lying?
First of all, it was definitely sealed and it was taped. Here's a photo of it. And there was chain of custody. I've already gone over that in a past video. If you want, I can go over it again, but there was definitely a chain of custody log. And we also have these lab notes that show it was in a brown paper bag and that it was sealed with evidence tape. Okay? So it was sealed. I'm not sure where you're seeing that it was not sealed because that is not in any of the documents. And secondly, they did not change the item number of the sheath. I went over this recently. I'll go over it again because apparently you aren't getting it. The sheath is item 1. The swabs from the sheath are 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. The DNA extract from 1.1 is item 22. So the sheath is not item 22. The sheath is still item 1. Then the swabs have their own item numbers, and then the extraction has its own item number.
They left blood DNA evidence at the murder scene at 1122, and it was absolutely found. Can you all guess where it was found? Marker 37, right here, that they put in there, but they so kindly missed in the experts evaluation. All right? You guys, I can't make this up. They skipped over key evidence that the prosecution was not going to put in there. What does it say right here? Unredacted, 1127 Wall, King Road, Apartment 1. Who lived in Apartment 1? Okay, so we don't know whose blood it was, but we do know this blood was found at 1127 King Road. And when you look at the actual evidence, this was said to be male C. Male C was said to be submitted swab of item 30 that was found in outside of Maddie's bedroom. Very clearly, item 30 is bottom stair handrail. Item 30. Item 30, right here, marker, in 1122 King Road, main floor, west bedroom, south wall. That was marker 30. And then right here again, 30, marker 30. Marker 30 showed to be what? Marker 30 was said to be male C, unknown male C. Unknown male C links back to Apartment 1.
Why you always lying?
A lot to unpack here, but let's start with lab item 37. You are correct. That is the blood swab from the entry in the kitchen over at 1127. And here it is on the exhibit. You'll see lab item 37, and that's the swabs of the hallway and the kitchen. It's MPD item 242. Now, where you're getting out in the weeds is you're confusing marker 37 with lab item 37. Marker 37 is from Xana's room on the floor, west bedroom floor. ISP marker 37 is ISP Forensic Services marker R. And marker R is item 78. And item 78 is Xana's blood. That is definitely not unknown male C. Unknown male C was only over at 1127, not at 1122. You also made the claim that they skipped it over, that the prosecution didn't include it and that it wasn't in the expert report, and that's absolutely false. It's talked about in Sutton's report, placard 37. So when you say you can't make this up, well, actually, yes, Phoenix, you are making these things. So then you did a weird turn into item 30. And yes, that's the swab from the handrail on the stairs between the first and second floor. But that has nothing to do with unknown male C. Lab item 30 is unknown male B, not C. And B was not found at 1127. B was only found in 1122 and has nothing to do with unknown male C. So bottom line is unknown male C was not found anywhere in 1122. It's not tied to anything in 1122. It was only found in 1127. It did not match any of the victims. It did not match any of the people they tested it against. Not even Jack Ducour, even though he lived there. It was not related to the crime. That's the bottom line.
And yes, this was blood on the floor in the kitchen, folks. You have to read the reports to get that. That was blood in the kitchen, item 40.
Why you always lying?
How ironic that you're telling people to read the documents, because clearly you haven't read them, because there was not blood found in the kitchen. Here is the report. It tested negative in the kitchen. The floor, the wall, the cabinets. There was no blood found in the kitchen.
And unknown male D links back to apartment 1. Holy shit.
Why you always lying?
Okay, now I'm starting to question if you even know how to read. Because unknown male D is the glove that was found outside 10 days later. It had nothing to do with 1127. And it didn't match any of the victims, nobody that they tested it to. It was not eligible for CODIS. It definitely was not tied back to 1127 King.
I also wanted to talk about another case that you helped to solve, Beth Doe, now identified as Evelyn Cullen.
Okay, so they are solving cold cases. So why have they not solved the Idaho 4 case? They say they solved it with Italian DNA. I showed you that already. How in the world did they solve it when there is DNA that shows up and matches at 1127 King Road?
Why you always lying?
So while most everyone knows his mom is Italian, inmate 163214's grandmother on his dad's side is also Italian. So his dad is half Italian. This was his grandmother, Kathy Votino. So on both sides of his family, he's Italian. And also, the case is solved. You're like, well, why hasn't Othram solved this cold case? It's not a cold case. It's solved. And he's not factually innocent. He pled guilty. Okay? He's not factually innocent. He pled guilty. Case is closed. He's in jail for the rest of his life. Deal with it.